This is John Gilroy from the Federal Tech Podcast.
And this is Frank Antezana with iTechAG.
Today, we're going to talk about improving citizen and federal user experience. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Frank Antezana, CEO at iTechAG. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing well, John. How about yourself?
Good. Talk about citizen experience in the federal government. Now, you're a young guy, and I'm an old guy, and this isn't new. This isn't like breaking news. Citizen experience with the federal website. We've seen this since the 1970s, before you were born. I mean, this is an old topic, but somehow, I don't know, in the last few years, it's heated up, and that's why I wanted to bring you in, maybe give you a background on it. So tell us about your company and why you like to focus on this specific topic, Frank.
Absolutely, John. I appreciate the opportunity here. So iTechAG, founded in 2008, specializes in modernizing large federal enterprise systems. We brought in a lot of digital platforms in the modernization efforts of CIO offices across the federal government. And what we're seeing now is with Biden's executive order back in December of 2021, there's been a lot more attention to CX, citizen experience, customer experience. And really, that's ensuring the adoption of these enterprise systems being rolled out. Historically, we've seen a lot of effort put into these systems and many times not completely adopted or continue with the same frustrations that citizens have had. So there's been a lot of attention over the last 2 years on this matter, and we're seeing agencies move in this direction, putting programs and soliciting industry to come in and assist in meeting their missions around customer experience.
Did my homework this morning. I read the Executive 14058 order, and this isn't just a minor little thing. Try to make the websites easier to use. I mean, there's 36 customer experience improvement commitments across 17 federal agencies. This is getting a bigger push, isn't it?
A lot of push. We're not, you're absolutely right. It's not just about making websites look friendly and prettier, but it's really about ensuring accuracy. It's really about getting data in the consumer's hands with minimum error to no error, ensuring turnaround times are quicker. We're seeing the IRS with a huge push. They grabbed $80 billion of their overhaul funding that was released to them through the Inflation Reduction Act. And they're putting a lot of attention with CX, and their goal is to reduce the time in which taxpayers are addressing any observations in their files, any errors that need to be corrected, understanding the status of where their refund is. So we're seeing a lot of push in that direction to improve the data in which citizens are reacting to the information being at hand. We're looking at the USDA. The USDA's put a tiger team, or they're actually creating a digital team in-house under the CIO office to start moving their programs in the direction of not just implementing a modern solution, but also considering consumer experience and improving that experience across the board. We couple this with a variety of elements in implementations like cybersecurity. There's a huge push in the recent act. In May of 21, we saw the Cybersecurity Act that Biden pushed out with improving our nation's cybersecurity. And the goal behind that is ensuring that all the agencies are taking into account hardening of their security postures, improving security of their data. And this all has to be in place by September of 2024. So agencies are pushed against a timeline that needs to be met in a very short period of time, and we need to start seeing reaction through those executive orders.
I have a couple of friends coming over on Saturday, and just as a coincidence, two of the gentlemen there were born and raised in Louisiana. So I'm thinking about Louisiana. We talk about it in the food and everything else. And how can you talk about Louisiana and think about hurricanes and FEMA? And so I was thinking about user experience. Now, you can have a website that loads fast and looks good and maybe get some awards and everything else, But if you're in Louisiana, you're applying for some FEMA help. It's got to be quick. It's got to be accurate. It's got to be easy to understand, maybe mobile friendly. And so this whole idea of citizen experience, it's really important for emergency situations, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. It gives you having access to information under multiple platforms or under multiple devices gives you real-time data, and it gives you the ability to make real-time decisions, and you have to trust the data. And for you to trust the data, you have to ensure that the systems being implemented follow a security posture that will ensure the accuracy and the relevance of the data in a real-time moment. We could have reacted a lot better to a number of natural incidents or the pandemic, for example. We see that a lot of things took a while to react to, took a while for citizens to understand the playbook behind how do we react to a certain incident? What's the protocol behind being exposed to the pandemic? So it took us a while to put these elements in place because information was dispersed across the board, and we didn't have one single system that was aggregating the data and making it consumable to the right folks to make decisions quickly and tell the nation how to react to certain things.
So when you first saw the EO, what was your reaction? You think it was too much, too little, or just right?
I thought it was too late. Honestly, we should have seen an executive order of this nature a lot sooner. Not because we suffered a global pandemic the way we did and information was tough to access, but really because our nation deserves it. The people in our country deserve to have access to this data. And we need to ensure that our nation is allowing us to have access to this data and not feel like our nation may be hiding something from us. So I think this should have been easier because not that there is a perception or a misunderstanding behind where that data reside, but really it's about making it accessible, right? And the data existed all the time. It's just how do we get the citizens to access it? That was really the biggest concern. How many times have you gone to a government system and in search of a particular data point, and you navigate through these very cumbersome websites and you feel lost, right? Oh. Or the data just doesn't line up, or you see a different data point on one website versus the other. So it's really coming to consensus and ensuring that there is continuity in the data across all the agencies, and that the consumer has access to that data in ways that it's easy and it doesn't go away from the lack of confidence that we may have when we go search it.
I was just thinking there may be citizens that have to interact with multiple different agencies, and that every step along the way, they may have to repeatedly prove their identity and do a lot of repetitive tasks. Now, you wouldn't think this is part of citizen experience, but it really is a more in-depth part of it. I mean, just the whole process of the citizen experience going through several websites, it's got to be difficult, but other companies seem to have accomplished that.
Right. So what we're seeing across the board is identity management has become a big thing, because there's a lot of citizens that also may have inappropriate intentions behind the data. So what you want to do is really ensure that your identity management solutions are coupled with these modernization efforts. But at the same time, how do you bring the security of that citizen from one site to the next site, right? And really there's solutions out there today that are allowing for that continuity so that citizens are not left behind, or they're constantly having to go through this massive security check. But we already have security measures in place that would already ensure the identity of those individuals going from one site to the next site and retrieving data as need.
When I review some of these fact sheets that are associated with this EO, the term life experience pops up. In fact, they specific, here are 9 life experiences. And so how does your company help in that experience for the general citizen of the United States?
Sure. So we've been supporting a number of initiatives in this front, bringing in modern technology and digitalizing the federal government across multiple agencies requires us to not only retire their legacy system, but it's ensuring that there's a cleansing of that data that will then reside in a modern system, and then ensuring that the consumer of that data, whether it's inside the federal government or external to the federal government, will be able to have access to rich data the same way they had before. And in this case, it's also ensuring that while data may have resided in the past in multiple systems, that there is real-time sync across all of them, so that there is not a mismatch across one database to the next database as citizens start to navigate through these systems. So iTechAG has been modernizing many federal systems. We brought in digital platforms such as ServiceNow, Salesforce, among several others. And alongside with that, we've been introducing through the executive order, the cybersecurity executive order back from May 2021, we've introduced a number of zero trust architecture into these solutions, following the executive order and ensuring that agencies are adopting new security postures with their data residing into these modern systems, ensuring that these agencies also have updated compliant playbooks that will ensure that they know how to remediate certain issues or incidents that occur within their modern systems. So iTechAG offers a gamma of services that will not just come in and integrate the modern solution, but also ensure that the agency is prepared to adopt the solution, roll out the solution, and that the data is flowing with the level of continuity that's required for the agency to make decisions on.
A lot of fact sheets online about this whole customer experience. In fact, there was a recent one on March 9th. And the one on March 9th had some interesting aspects to it. They talk about piloting new online tools and technologies. And so can your company provide a test bed or maybe some kind of a center where they can test these tools and say, this is good, this is bad, this you try out, or is that not your role at all?
Absolutely. So part of what we do at iTechAG is we have something called iTech Labs. And iTech Labs really is a sandbox where our engineers test out certain integrations. So we'll bring in a digital platform, we'll integrate it with a number of security tools. And I can mention a variety of them, but I'll narrow it down just to a use case. We'll integrate ServiceNow, for example, digital platform used globally, and we'll integrate it with a Splunk, which is a log collector that we can also run tools on top of the log collector to ensure that we have a clear understanding of trends. If we see an anomaly in the trend, we'll run our trend analytics tool on top of that and determine if there's a variation from the baseline, then it triggers an alert. And what that does, it will then show us where the anomaly occurred. How did it occur? At what point did it occur in the transaction of data? And then we run all those through our iTech lab. We conduct studies on them, and then we ensure that we put security postures to ensure how to know how we would remediate a particular situation if we were to put this into a production state. So when we go bring this to the federal government as a use case, we already tell them this particular architecture can give you these types of results, and this is how you would react to these results in the moment of a particular type of incident. So we'll run these scenarios in our lab before we go and bring it to the government and make them aware of potential incidents that could occur as a result of the architecture. Yesterday,
I interviewed a guy in Colorado Springs, and what a beautiful place to be. We talked about bicycling, and it was a satellite interview. We talked about bicycling, and I said, well, a lot of challenges out there with riding bicycles because, well, when you head east, it's not much of a challenge. You head west, it's more of a challenge, all kinds of mountains there. But I'm sure that federal agencies have challenges as well when they try to improve their CX experience. So what are two or three of the ones you see in your experience with federal agencies improving CX?
So one of the challenges we've seen is the government wants to improve CX. The government is, through the executive orders, mandated to take initiatives forward. What we're seeing that the government is having challenges is they put these solicitations out, and what we're seeing is funding to get to these solicitations is taking longer than expected. So if we're seeing a timeline that the federal government has to meet their mission in, it many times is pushed to the right because these initiatives, while the executive order has given it the right level of attention, we need to now see the funding to back that level of attention so that the agencies can react quicker and get the solutions implemented sooner, and they can hire the right folks, whether it's in-house or bringing in folks from industry. But we need to see these fundings come in a lot quicker so that we can react to the executive order sooner. In addition to that, we can't look at CX and digital modernization efforts as a standalone. It's very, very important to understand that CX needs to be coupled, digitalization, modernization efforts need to be coupled with a cybersecurity component. Because the way the government was managing their data, the way the government reacted to certain security breaches and security data incidents will be very, very different when they're running their solutions on a digital platform that is coupled by a front end and a back end solution. So we're seeing that the government also needs to modernize their processes. They need to adapt their processes alongside with their digitalization and modernization efforts. So these efforts need to be funded simultaneously as they look at their digital roadmap, and they need to be as important to the government as the CX efforts.
And the documentation for a lot of CX, one of the laudable goals is to reduce the administrative burden. And it's both sides. It's the administrative burden from the federal side and the administrative burden from the citizen side. So that, Frank, puts you right in the crosshairs. You got to pull to the left, you pull to the right. Your arm's going to get real stretched out here. So what you have to come up with is to assist a federal agency in reducing perhaps the difficulty of a form application for a farm loan. On the other hand, they have to comply with many of each agency may have 3 or 4 different kind of priorities. So if it's interoperable, you have 2 or 3 agencies. Then we have the guy in Iowa applying for a farm loan. And so this is, should we use the word orchestration here, or just high degree of difficulty?
There's always that challenge, though. When you look at the missions behind every single one of the federal agencies, there's always going to be a challenge with the folks on the business side and the folks doing the technology side. It's how do you translate those business needs, those requirements from our nation into how the government needs to react. And sometimes understanding the priority of what to focus on is a challenge for the CIO office. And that's where some of the solicitations get pushed to the right or just get delayed, or funding is reprioritized based on a backlog. So, and the impact of that is the farmer in Idaho, their initiative gets delayed as a result of some of these changing and shifting priorities. So we see that constantly, but it's how do we bridge those two, right? I think that's where the challenge of the federal government is. How do we bridge what our consumers need? What in your example, what do the farmers need, and how can we react to it quicker as an agency? It's finding that perfect combination, that perfect orchestration as you used earlier, and ensuring that those requirements that the individuals, that the government individuals running those requirements for our nation know how to prioritize and understand the impact to our nation, so that they can start becoming part of that roadmap, part of that priority roadmap that the CIO office focuses on.
In the YouTube interviews I've been listening to and watching this morning, a lot of phrases pop up. And you've used a lot of the phrases as well. There's one phrase that pops up. It's called increasing participation. And this seems to be this big overriding goal. So one aspect of increasing participation may be the $1 billion in infrastructure, so that guy in Iowa has high band access so he can apply for the loan. And another aspect of increasing participation is the burden of CX. And so it's kind of, you would think these are disparate elements. These are all kind of working together. So what we're trying to do is, yes, the government realizes there's a guy in Iowa who may need a loan, and we're trying to make it accessible through high-speed internet, as well as through just the form itself and maintaining the data. It's there's a lot of moving parts in this little phrase of increasing participation, isn't there?
Absolutely. But, modern technology helps with this. We talk about artificial intelligence. We talk about machine learning. A lot of these solutions in which the farmer from Idaho can apply to can be addressed through artificial intelligence. These application forms can come in and be ingested through technologies that will then help the government react quicker to them. So we're seeing a lot of initiatives around AI and machine learning. There's just so much out there that will help our citizens get the attention they need and help the government make decisions around what our citizens need faster. So it's a matter of getting those implementations run, getting the funding for the solicitations, and helping the government move forward quicker.
I've talked to a lot of companies about data, and what's happened over the last 5 to 7 years. There's something called a chief data officer has popped up, and the government's got a whole group of chief data officers now. So, and they're dealing with a lot of important topics. I'm wondering if there should be another C-level executive, maybe a customer experience officer, CXO. Is that in the works? Do commercial companies have that?
Believe it or not, there's a lot of that already.
Really?
There is a lot of that already. We're seeing organizations put a lot of attention to that. You got to remember, we're catering to consumers.
Yeah.
The solutions cater to consumers. It's how do we make their lives easier? How do we help them meet their missions or the purpose of them navigating a particular system or solution easier? So there's already a lot of CXO organizations within the large enterprises today. And many times the CXO office falls under a CIO office. So we're seeing that already in the industry.
Amazing. My next door neighbor, she ran the 10-mile cherry blossom run. And, we're outside in the backyard talking. I'm going, well, what are the first steps? How would you train for something like that? And she gave me her, 6-month training. I would think there are agencies now that are interested in improving their CX, and they may have the funding, or maybe it's working through funding. Are there basic or baby steps or a preliminary practice for the Boston Marathon? What can they do right now, maybe to just a few concrete steps to begin this journey?
First of all, it's understanding where the challenges are. Like, if they want to see where they can reduce the amount of time individuals are focused on obtaining a particular data point, they should analyze all those trend analytics. And you can do that through log collections. You can understand the moment a consumer enters a particular site to the moment they retrieve the data, how long and how many steps does that take? And they should do the analysis as to where can it be reduced and where can it be automated if possible, if automation is possible. So analyzing that will give them an indication as to how quick or how can they improve the metrics in a particular area. The IRS is pushing a lot of attention to ensuring that the time taxpayers receive a tax credit or a tax payment is done quicker through the modern technology, their modern efforts that they're putting in CX. So it's going to improve our nation's ability to receive, but it's also going to improve our nation's ability to return information back to our consumers. So understanding what metrics can we improve on, what metrics the federal government can improve on is going to be important for this. And that analysis would start the CX initiative.
So if you're listening to this interview and want more information, you can go to the website. It's iTechAG.com. There's a blog there. There's information. There's all kinds of stories about how we can use ways to improve your customer experience. I think there's a little information about your lab there, isn't it? I think there is. Is there on your website? There's
a lot of information. I definitely invite our audience to visit our website, iTechAG.com. Certainly, there's good material around artificial intelligence. We also have a YouTube channel that talks about some of our initiatives within the federal government around AI, and as well as our website. Our website has a blog that contains a lot of rich data. One of the particular ones that I'll direct the audience to is our Zero Trust Architecture white paper. Phenomenal document that we'll talk to you a little bit about the executive order, as well as where iTech has been involved in Zero Trust Architecture initiatives.
Wow, that's combining a lot of important topics. Unfortunately, Frank, we're running out of time. You've been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Frank Antezana, CEO at iTechAG.
This is Matt Thompson from Socure. Listen to episode 66 of the Federal Tech Podcast, where I explain why identity always is the first pillar when it comes to federal cybersecurity.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.